Am I live? Good evening, Kenyans and everyone else around the world. We are live. We are live, and today is both a sad and a very glorious day. Sad because of Kizza Besigye's condition in Uganda's Gulag, where Yoweri Museveni, Raila's buddy, is illegally detaining and torturing Dr. Kizza Besigye. I am going to be very loud in calling for Dr. Kizza Besigye's immediate and unconditional release so that he can seek medical attention. I am going to strongly condemn conman Raila Odinga and tyrant Ruto for selling and betraying Kizza Besigye, who visited Kenya for a legal function a month or so ago and was abducted in Nairobi, illegally renditioned to Uganda, put in a military jail, and subjected to horrendous treatment. We call on tyrant Yoweri Museveni to immediately release Kizza Besigye. Secondly, I have to thank and congratulate Africans from Morocco to South Africa, from Togo to Somalia, who stood with Kenyans in rejecting conman Raila Odinga from Africa Union Council chairmanship. Viva and bravo! You have demonstrated to the world that conmanship is unacceptable and will be rejected in the entire African continent. They went to Addis Ababa thinking that they were going to bamboozle, they were going to bribe, they were going to intimidate and threaten, they were going to impress African heads of state and foreign ministers with their primitive opulence and plutocracy. And Africa has shown them, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It does not matter how much money you have stolen. We are going to stand for Pan-Africanism. I particularly salute the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. Cyril Ramaphosa, regardless of the inconsistencies and contradictions of the past, has demonstrated to the entire African continent that he's a true Pan-African hero. He took the Zionist, genocidal, racist, Israeli, brutal government to the International Court of Justice and subjected Netanyahu and his fellow fascists to justice. And they were indicted at the International Criminal Court. They were indicted by the International Court of Justice, and South Africa lay bare the horrendous genocide going on in Palestine. I want to salute the people of the Congo who have suffered since the CIA and the Western imperialist forces led by King Leopold of Belgium, butchered one of the greatest African heroes, Patrice Lumumba, and since then have turned Congo into a death camp where they have murdered and massacred tens of millions of innocent Africans and plundered their resources. The gold, the diamonds, the uranium, and other precious metals. And right now, as we speak, the tyrant William Kipchirchir Ruto and his fellow tyrant, Paul Kagame, are causing havoc with the help of the Western states. We must condemn what Ruto and company are doing in the Congo unreservedly. I condemn it unreservedly. I am also going to stand in solidarity with the suffering civilians of the Sudan. For more than 10 years now, in fact, for more than 30 years now, the Sudanese have known only blood, suffering after suffering after suffering, no freedom. The brave Sudanese stood a few years ago in a revolutionary transformative action and removed their military dictator. But instead of allowing the Sudanese to control their destiny, the West conspired with the military juntas and overthrew the civilian government. And since then, millions of Sudanese have been displaced, millions have been butchered, millions continue to suffer and starve. I stand in solidarity with the people of Somalia, who have known nothing but suffering, division, and civil war since the overthrow of the military dictatorship in the 1980s. Now, coming home to Kenya, let us dissect the meaning of conman Raila Odinga's defeat. What does it mean? Let me tell you why I analyzed Raila's impending and now defeat with scientific precision. It was not a prophecy. It was a scientific analysis. What was it that led to this complete defeat of conman Raila Odinga and his buddy, tyrant William Kipchirchir Ruto? Number one, Raila Odinga and Ruto supported Israeli genocide against the Palestinians and still do. They say that they stood with Israel. Israel has been butchering the Palestinians since 1947. The whole of Israel was Palestine in 1947. When the British, the Americans, the Europeans, and other imperialist forces decided to commit what is called the Nakba, the horrendous, great genocide in 1948, when a whole people of Palestine were uprooted, displaced, removed from their indigenous land, and cast to the four winds and rendered stateless. And since then, Israel occupied Palestine and turned the Palestinians into slaves and have been killing them like insects. It's a human rights tragedy that any peace-loving and revolutionary have to condemn. So many of us stood with Palestine and have remained steadfast in fighting for the Palestinian sovereignty, territorial sovereignty, their rights as a people, self-determination, and the right to be free like everybody else. Palestinians are not second-class human beings. And if you love human life, you must stand with Palestine. So when Raila Odinga and his puppet William Ruto stood with Israel, all peace-loving citizens of the world had to start seeing them in that context. They were not with us. Because after America and the Zionists finish with the Palestinians, their next stop is going to be Africa. Just like in 1947, before Israel took over Palestine, they wanted to resettle the Jews from Europe in Kenya, in northern Kenya. And as we speak right now, the entire East Africa and Central Africa would be Israel's playground. We would all have been slaves. So it is very important to see it in that context. The moment Ruto stood with Israel and against the Palestinian rights, all Muslims in the entire African continent could not stand with Raila Odinga. All Arabs could not stand with Raila Odinga. All revolutionaries that have stood against Israel genocide in Palestine, like the entire SADC, South African group of countries, the former frontline states that fought against apartheid, in South Africa, could not stand with Raila Odinga. So Raila Odinga lost 3/4 of the African continent just by supporting Israel. So that's number one. So I knew there was no way Raila Odinga was going to win. You cannot win when you are with Israel in Africa. You cannot win in the world today when you are with fascists and racists and genocidal lunatics in the world. You cannot win. So that's number one. Number two, Raila Odinga is a conman, a quintessential conman and a pathological liar, just like Ruto. Raila Odinga betrayed me in 2018. And then last year, Raila Odinga betrayed Dr. Kizza Besigye. This is a man who has fought in Uganda for freedom for the last 35, 40 years. Traveled to Kenya like everybody else in East Africa, legally, boarded a plane in Entebbe, landed at the JKIA, was intending to attend a book launch, went to meet his friends in an apartment in Nairobi, legally, and was kidnapped from Nairobi. Kizza Besigye, against my strong advice, and I advised him publicly in 2022 not to support Raila Odinga, decided to come to Kenya and campaign for Raila Odinga. They took photos, they took videos, they ate, they were very good to each other, purportedly. And then when Raila lost, Kizza Besigye went back to Uganda and continued with his life. So why is it that Raila Odinga has kept quiet since Kizza Besigye was kidnapped from Nairobi? Because Raila Odinga is a transactional charlatan who only believes in his interests and himself and his families, who only believes in money that he earns from all manner of murky sources, who believes that he only supports those with power, those with weapons, those with money. So because Ruto is president and can give him money and can give him the trinkets, the bodyguards, the limousines, 30 pieces of silver, Raila Odinga betrayed Kizza Besigye. On that basis alone, Raila Odinga demonstrated that he was not a true Pan-Africanist. A true Pan-Africanist has to be an honest man with integrity, has to be a man and woman who believes in the rule of law, who believes in the principle of constitutionalism, who believes on respect for human rights, who believes on the supremacy of the Constitution, which comes with the Bill of Rights. Raila Odinga does not believe on any of these things or in any of these things. So, in that context, Raila Odinga was going to export to Addis Ababa, to the AU, and to the AUC all the bad manners that he has learned and is perpetuating in Kenya. Number three, point number three. The glorious, heroic Gen Zs of Kenya went to the streets in 2024, June 25th. Our revolutionary Gen Zs mobilized, organized, and opposed the Finance Bill 2024. They mobilized, they protested, they took over parliament, and they stopped Ruto in his tracks. Ruto was in the process of implementing the most punitive IMF-imposed conditions of taxation without representation, of taxation without benefit, of taxation without rights, of being turned slaves in your own country. And after that happened, and Ruto was just about to be removed from his legitimate perch at the State House, Raila Odinga went behind the Gen Z's backs and did a deal, an evil contract, an arrangement with the abductor and the chief mass murderer in East Africa, the most corrupt man in Africa, the second most corrupt man in the entire world, William Kipchirchir Ruto, stood in front of the entire world at the KICC and announced that he was going to support Ruto. He didn't care that Ruto had murdered hundreds of Gen Zs after the protest, during the protest, and in days after that has perpetrated a systematic abduction of young people, disappeared them, tortured them, and continues to kill many of them. Raila didn't care about that. Raila didn't care about the real grievance that led to the Gen Z revolution. The fact that the Gen Zs, more than 65% of them, highly qualified, young with a lot of energy and vision, are unemployed. And there are no reasonable prospects that they will get employment this year, next year, the year after, 10 years from now. That is not in the plan of these power barons, the bandits in Nairobi. And the Gen Zs could see that and said, look, we own the country. Kenya does not belong to William Ruto. Kenya belongs to 56, 60 million Kenyans, 65% of whom are Gen Zs or younger. These are the owners of the country. These are the people that the future belongs to. Not the renegades. Not the old people that have looted and are going to die in a few years anyway. But no, Raila did not stand with the Gen Zs. Raila did not stand with the future. Raila stood with his stomach. Raila stood with his greed. Raila stood with his conmanship and arrogance and said he was going to join Ruto in cracking down on the critics of the government. That's point number 3. Having betrayed the Gen Zs in the face of a vicious, most humane and cruel, barbaric crackdown, having betrayed the Gen Zs who had shed blood while campaigning for their rights, having betrayed the Gen Zs that were just about to lead and overhaul a complete transformation of the Kenyan rotten political system, having betrayed the Gen Zs that were leading the revolution, Raila Odinga could not be elected in Addis Ababa, because that would be a bad betrayal for the entire Gen Zs in the African continent, which is probably 70% of the population of the African continent, billions of people. The African Union is supposed to be the body that symbolizes, that epitomizes the unity, even if it is rhetorical unity of the African continent, of the African people. And that unity is supposed to be unity of purpose. It's supposed to be unity of a vision for a freer, a more prosperous, a liberated African continent. It's supposed to be a unity of values or in values. Values of freedom, values of liberation, values of prosperity, values of love, values of everything good. It cannot be values of theft, values of looting, values of plutocracy, values of tyranny, values of barbarism, values of retrogression, values of primitivity, values of torture, values of abduction, which is what Ruto symbolizes in Africa today. Ruto is an existential threat to all the positive values that Pan-Africanists stand for. Raila Odinga is Ruto's chief facilitator in Kenya, in the African region. If you want to understand how Raila Odinga is so corrupt and a conman, look at even the way that he relates to the regional leaders of Africa. Take the DRC. Raila Odinga was supposed to be the greatest friend for Felix Tshisekedi, who is the president of DRC Congo. He wanted, and he was actually doing smuggling of Congo's minerals, gold, diamonds. Raila Odinga is a multi-billionaire, okay, in dollar terms, because of corruption, because of smuggling, because of money laundering, because of plutocracy that he has been engaging in. So he's a friend of Tshisekedi. Tshisekedi has visited him, even at home in Karen. But in the recent past, Raila Odinga has been supporting Kagame, who is being backed by the Western imperialists to destabilize Congo so that they can continue to loot Congo's minerals. So you can see that he doesn't care about friendship. He doesn't care about the fact that the Congolese have been suffering for the last 60 years. He doesn't care that the West don't really give a damn about Africa. Trump doesn't give a damn about Africa. And all the Western leaders don't give a damn about Africa. They care about how much they can extract from the African continent. In fact, if you listen to Trump recently, he said he wants South African white, the Boers, the people who perpetrated apartheid for 100 years, the people who have looted 90% of the land in South Africa and the minerals, and who have never worked, who have treated black people like dogs, even worse than dogs. In fact, black people in South Africa are worse than domestic dogs in South Africa. The South African domestic dogs, the dogs in South Africa, belonging to white people, are fed better, are housed better, are treated better, and are considered higher in terms of hierarchy than the African black South African. Trump said he wants to give a free, although he's saying everybody should leave the United States who came to the United States illegally, the only group of people that he would allow, without even requiring them to apply for a visa, is a South African Boer, a South African white, which means that to Trump, black people are not human beings. Anybody other than white person is not a human being. And he said, white South Africans will be able to come to the United States without a requirement of a visa. But all the Africans that are in the United States who should be given a visa because they immigrated there, they're contributing to the economy of the United States. And by the way, 90% of the people working jobs that are building and have built the economy of the United States are people of color, Africans. The United States became rich because of slave labor, African slave labor, free labor. Slavery built South Africa, built the United States. The skyscrapers you see in New York, Los Angeles, okay, that you see in Chicago and some major US cities, these were constructed by Africans without payment. They did it without remuneration. They did it while living in conditions worse than conditions of a pig. Trump's father and grandfather, great-grandfather, came to the United States illegally. They came out of European prisons and were given two options. You either stay in Europe in jail or you go to the Americas. And that's the only freedom you can get. They opted to sail to the Americas. This land, North America, does not belong to white people. It belongs to indigenous Indians, the so-called First Nations. So don't buy this BS of Musk and Trump that somehow they own North America. They don't. They don't have more rights to North America than Africans. So if they can claim North America, Africans have the right to claim North America because they built it, okay, with their blood. So I was talking about South Africa and Kenya's position vis-a-vis South African liberation and freedom. During the struggle for apartheid, Kenya supported the white supremacist apartheid system in South Africa. Kenya did not contribute 1 cent towards the South African struggle. Kenya gave refuge to South African Boers, the whites who are oppressing South African blacks in South Africa. Kenya did not join Tanzania to train, to give logistical and material support and military support like the frontline nations, countries like Zambia, Zimbabwe, and after Mozambique became independent, Mozambique, Angola. No, Kenya did not participate in that. Kenya undermined and subverted the liberation struggle in South Africa. And don't think South Africans have forgotten that. South African blacks have not forgotten that. And please don't give me this nonsense about, look how they are treating us. They call you Makwerekwere in South Africa. So why do you need to go to South Africa to be called Makwerekwere when you can stay in your own country and build it? You don't have to go to South Africa. You don't have to go to the US. You don't have to go anywhere. We can build our country and make it more prosperous than South Africa. And South Africans who are calling you Makwerekwere are just as illiterate and retrogressive like Raila Odinga or William Ruto, because they also do not like other Africans. They prefer white people and Indians. Look at the deals, the scandals that they are perpetrating in Kenya. Who is it that they're doing it with? Adani. Adani is not an African. He's not a South African. He's an Indian. Jayesh. That's not an African. That's not a South African, another Indian, and many others. To them, Kenya is just a ground, a fertile ground for exploitation. And where are they taking all the money that they have stolen from us? Dubai, the United Arab so-called republic or whatever it is, it's kingdom. These people who, even as we speak, are supporting Trump's plan of ethnically cleansing the Palestinians from Palestine and taking them out so that Trump and them, the billionaires, can build a Riviera on Palestinian land so that they can make billions. They're not even satisfied with the one they have stolen. So in other words, Raila Odinga represents the worst of the worst in the entire world, the scum of the earth. So what does this defeat mean? And why am I happy about his defeat? Raila Odinga's defeat means money cannot buy you everything. That's number one. Okay? And we must underline this. Okay? Real power does not come from money. The first thing is this, the brain. Essentially, I've been able to defeat Raila Odinga, and I don't have the billions. I don't have the platforms they have. I don't have the power they have. But I have this, which they cannot take away from me. I've been posting, I've been lobbying, I've been deconstructing, I've been exposing Raila Odinga 24/7. I've written to all the presidents of Africa. I've written to everybody that can hear. I've exposed him on all platforms. And by the way, my X platform alone reaches more than 20 million people every day. Okay? So don't underestimate the power of communication. If you are committed, this is another meaning of his defeat. If you are ideologically clear, if you are completely committed, if you are focused like a laser beam, if you are consistent, if you are truthful, if you have integrity, and if you are fearless, you will succeed no matter the amount of power they put to challenge you. That's what we have demonstrated. We have demonstrated to Ruto that yes, he may have guns. Yes, he has zombies. He can command bloggers and muzzle men to abduct. Yes, he has the National Intelligence Service. Yes, he has a lot of billions that he has looted and plundered. Yes, he has the ability to fly all over the African continent and abroad. Yes, he can bamboozle and he can try to threaten and intimidate, but in the end, it is truth that prevails. You can do all these other things, but in the end, truth prevails. All right? So that's number two. Lesson number two. Lesson number three. The record that you leave behind, the record of evil doing, the record of betrayal, the record of retrogressive politics perpetrated consistently and persistently by these renegades, by these bandits, must and will be punished today. not in the next generation. So impunity will and does not fly. People thought, who are you? You don't vote at the AUC. Only heads of state vote there. You are going to fail. You are just bitter. Well, the fact of the matter is that we did prevail. The fact of the matter is that the small man matters. The fact of the matter is that in the end, people will remember and will see in good time crooks versus righteous people. They will be able to distinguish them. And the moment they distinguish and they find out that one is a crook, they will not support that, the majority of people. Of course, you still have 20 states that supported Raila Odinga. It doesn't matter. In the end, who surrendered? Who was defeated at the AUC? It was Raila Odinga. It was not Mohammed Yusuf. It was Raila Odinga. But who was bamboozling us all over with private jets that cost 8 million per hour? It was Raila Odinga. Who took 300 plus, lunatics to go and dance in Addis Ababa and play music, Lingala, and go into five-star hotels, and try to impress the world with their ridiculousness? It was Raila Odinga and William Ruto. Where did that take them? To the dustbin of history. Okay? Just like it did to Uhuru Kenyatta when Uhuru Kenyatta tried to sell Amina Mohammed. So whether Uhuru Kenyatta, whether it is Ruto, whether it is whoever, impunity will not prevail. Number 3, if Raila Odinga had managed with Ruto to win the AUC chairmanship, he would have, or they would have been able to create a myth and mythology around Raila Odinga. The enigma, the rubbish, a person who never succeeds. Or they would have been able to create a myth and mythology around Raila Odinga. The enigma, the rubbish, a person. Or they would have been able to create a myth and mythology around Raila Odinga. The enigma, the rubbish, a person who never succeeds. Okay. Values of integrity, the values of revolutionary valor. Having betrayed everything, whatever he does now amounts to zero. So it doesn't matter whether he supports Ruto. Okay? Ruto gets nothing, zero, no value. Okay? And some of us will, in short while, be declaring what we are going to do in the next phase of the struggle. I will shortly be announcing what revolutionary vehicle and what mechanisms are we going to use to remove Ruto. Not in 2027, before. And now that we have defeated Raila Odinga and Ruto's boogeyman, whom he was going to use to create confusion, particularly in Nyanza. Now we have to retire both of them. And we have to retire both of them in jail. And we have to repossess all our wealth that they have plundered and hoarded and misused. Imagine Ruto misused about 13 billion Kenya shillings in the Raila Odinga so-called campaign. 13 billion Kenya shillings. People like Makau Mutua, the orangutan from Buffalo, what I call the toad of Buffalo, has failed fundamentally. People thought, oh, he's going to use so-called distinguished professor, distinguish my feet. He has failed. He was given trinkets to fly around from capital to capital and has been trying to amass as much wealth as he can while pretending to stand for anything. Makau Mutua has been reduced to a pathetic toad, okay, with his fake American twang, okay? He can't even be authentic. A man who went to the United States as an adult is pretending that he lost his accent and calls Uhuru Kenyatta, Kenyara. He talks like an idiot. So, we've defeated all of them, these fake academic frauds. No wonder Ruto promoted somebody like Sakaja to be governor of Nairobi, because all they care about is how much money they can actually steal and extract from the public coffers. So we have defeated them. Now we have to make sure that ODM is history, that the myth that united and kept ODM together, having been shattered in Addis Ababa, is history, is gone. We have to create new instruments, new organizational formations, new revolutionary movements to be able to liberate our people so that Kenya and Kenyans can live like free human beings again. So that charlatans and tyrants and looters like Ruto can be punished in our lifetime. That they don't end up dying like Moi with all the plundered wealth, so that his children continue to enjoy ill-gotten wealth, while the majority of hardworking Kenyans continue to suffer and struggle. As Ruto was using billions of Kenya shillings to fly Raila Odinga around with private jets, our hospitals have no medicine. Doctors cannot be hired. Teachers cannot be hired. Ruto has destroyed NHIF and brought shit Shah. Ruto is looting and plundering everywhere. The university education is a joke and is meaningless, because no matter how brilliant you are, no matter how many degrees you have, there is no prospect of real employment. They employ shit Shah. People the most corrupt, like Waititu, like Sonko, I know people don't want me to mention them, made billions without having finished primary school. Okay? All they have is fraud. People like Sakaja don't have degrees. And don't give me this, that degrees don't matter. They do. Otherwise, why do you have universities? Why are they using forged documents if degrees don't matter? Why are our children going to school? Why would you go to school, get a degree, and somebody tells you it is not important? Why are you allowing our children to graduate, Kenyans to graduate, and yet you don't want to give them jobs? I know some people are trying to interfere with this broadcast. It doesn't matter what you do. We are going to succeed, because when you have integrity, when you are truthful, when you are persistent and consistent and fearless, even God cannot fail you. As you can see, God has not failed us. We are on the right side of history, and God rewarded us. People thought, oh, Miguna is just bitter. He's just saying this. What are you going to do when Raila wins? It is so beautiful to say, no, we were right. We were right all along. Okay? I knew we were right. People are saying, oh, you're so prophetic. No, I was scientific. I analyzed this scientifically and reached the only logical and scientific conclusion. Given what I have said, only a lunatic could have said that Raila was going to win. Where was he going to get the votes? That all of a sudden, the president of Senegal, who came from jail and defeated a demagogue like Ruto, was going to vote for Raila Odinga. In which world? In which parallel universe was this going to happen? Oh, because the great Traore, the revolutionary from Burkina Faso, was not going to vote, and his comrades from the Sahel, from Mali and Guinea, all of a sudden, Raila had it. The red carpet is laid out. No, sir. No, ma'am. It was not going to happen. Just like Ruto is not going to succeed. Even a dog in the next election will defeat Ruto if we support that dog. Okay? So there is no way Ruto is going to win. You see, charlatans like, and I didn't want to say this, but I have to say this. People like Rigiji, who were treated so badly by Ruto the other day, even could not have the backbone to stand with us and say Raila must be defeated at the African Union Council chairmanship position. It couldn't. All these charlatans and hypocrites and opportunists were all hoping that somehow it was going to be a miracle and then they could all ride on the back of Raila Odinga. No, it requires a amount of uprightness to be able to be consistent and to stand for your principles. If something is bad, it is bad, even if the entire world said it was good. If something is good, it is good, even if the entire world told me it was bad. So I knew Raila was a con man. I've already been able to prove it. I've meticulously documented in my book, Peeling Back the Mask, which I will launch again this year. Like I promised. I said, this man is going to retire. We are going to force him into retirement. We are going to humiliate him into recognizing that Kenya belongs to Kenyans, not to bandits, organized bandits. The thugs that went to Addis Ababa, the 300 thugs, let's identify all of them, including Babu Patel, the drug dealer, the murderer. He went. We are going to remove them one after another because that is the best way of identifying them. You see, they went to Addis Ababa. We know them, so you know their faces. Meticulously document all of them. Because they stood with evil. They stood with renegades. They stood with plunderers. They did not have the backbone when the time, when the roll call was called, when we needed them, they were not there. And now they are going to come back with another shenanigan. Ruto is going to, I am sure, Ruto is going to come back with Raila so that they can start another BBI too. I'm 100% sure that they are going to come back and try to change the constitution to remove the term limit. Okay? They are going to come back to start something else because they have to start some choreography so that they can continue to steal public funds, they can continue to confuse people, and they can continue to manipulate the gullible for purposes of succeeding themselves. So that thugs semi-literates like Sudi can chest thump and say they are the best since sliced bread. We have to tell them no. The country belongs to 60 million Kenyans. The country is not theirs. Our rights are not negotiable. The Constitution is not negotiable. We, first and foremost, are sovereign. Okay? Sovereignty is in our hands. The people shall, not may. Okay? The people shall govern themselves, either directly or through their delegated appointees or electees, it doesn't matter. They can withdraw the support for these delegates when these delegates abuse power, abuse trust, subvert the Constitution, undermine our sovereignty, steal our resources, abduct our people, torture them, and kill them. Because they have committed all these crimes, we are saying it's over. No reprieve, no forgiveness, no confusion. We are taking our power back now. No negotiations. So, we have to organize wherever we are. Let nobody tell you, oh, you are abroad, you are where. No, it doesn't matter. We are all Kenyans. We are all patriots. We are all freedom fighters. We are proud of our rights. We are not going to allow anyone to subject us, to reduce us to positions of being an insect in our own country. So we are going to say, look, now, wherever you are, create a cell. Create a cell. A cell cannot be of less than 15 people. People who are not united on the basis of the fact that they are thieves or that they are planning to loot or that they are choreographing a mechanism of stealing elections. But patriots united in values. Values of integrity, number one. Unite, only unite with people who have values of integrity, number one. Unite with people who have values. Values of transformative vision. Vision. The ability to see far. The ability to discern. The ability to distinguish. The ability to robustly analyze and reach conclusions which are concrete. The transformation has to be at all levels. It has to be at the moral level. A thief, a liar, a conman cannot be part of this cell. Anyone who has stolen CDF, who has misappropriated, who has been taken to court for theft or murder and got away because of technicality or because they bribed the judges or the DPP or the police or whoever, cannot be part of this cell. So that disqualifies almost 100% of all the MPs and the senators that you have and the MCAs. The whole lot is rotten. So don't give me the example of the governor of Muranga. No. He steals 100% and gives 60%. He's still a thief. So I don't care. Kangata was a poor man, a pauper, and is now probably a billionaire. That means he's a thief. So don't give me that example. We want 100%. We are not looking for 20%. Okay? Get the cell together. Values of ideological clarity. If you have no ideology, and probably a lot of people don't even have an ideology, but get the cell of ideological clarity. Okay? Fidel Castro said in 1959, after the Cuban Revolution had succeeded, he was asked by an American journalist, Fidel, if you had to do it again, what is it that you would not do? Or what is it that you do? Fidel said, if I have to do it again, oh, it's gone. Huh? What is it? I think they're trying to take this thing down, but I'm going to continue. So, Fidel was asked, Fidel, if you have to do it again, what would you avoid? What would you not do? Fidel said, look, if I have to do this again, I will do it with 15 men, fully committed, ideologically clear, fearless, and with absolutely no contradictions. I would not do it with 35 men because he had done it. He had started the revolution with 35 men. So a lot of people will say, no, that's a very small number. No. At the core of the revolution, it's not the volume that matters. It's not the quantity that matters. It's the quality of people that matter. The NRA movement, at the core of it, when we pulled it off, and we surprised a lot of people, and up to now people don't know how we did it. We were less than 5. Less than 5. We were able to mobilize the entire country. We failed the Uhuru Park. They were not able to penetrate and infiltrate. And they were not able to plant anything. And even though Raila betrayed me and tried to pull out, he couldn't. Because when he saw the mass of people, he couldn't pull back. And I did it with no apology up to now. And if I were to do it again, I would do it again. Because if you elect a conman like you did in 2017, then I will swear you a conman in. Because that's the person you've chosen. All right? I respect the people that much. If you elect a conman, it is the conman that gets sworn in. Then you realize you elect a conman. Next time, you will not elect a conman. Just like this time, we elected a thug, a tyrant. Ruto is a thug. Ruto is a tyrant, yes. Because we are a demagogue and a deputy demagogue in 2022. So the demagogue was saying, I'm going to destroy the Constitution. I'm going to remove the term limits. I'm going to bring back detention without trial. I'm going to make sure that bodies on River Yala, there are going to be more bodies, all the rivers now. River Nyando, River Sondu, Athi River, whatever. All the rivers were going to pile up with bodies. And we said, no, this is now an existential threat. He's now with Raila Odinga. We have to stop them. So we used the deputy demagogue to stop the chief demagogue, Uhuru Kenyatta. That's what we did. We used Ruto. Knowing very well that we were now making sure that Kenyans understood, number one, that a president can be stopped. That you can actually defeat a sitting president. To me, that was the most important strategic value. That we needed to prove that Uhuru Kenyatta, no matter how strong he was, no matter how brutal, no matter how rich, we could stop him with Raila Odinga. A lot of people thought it was impossible. But I wanted this to happen so that Kenyans could know power is in their hands. So next time when faced with a chicken thief who is now becoming a tyrant and a plunderer. We can stop a chicken thief, who is Ruto. If we could stop Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, who is Ruto? Even if Ruto is joined by Raila Odinga and the stupid, lazy man called Mudavadi, and the watermelon and the rest of them, we can take them and bury them in one heap, which is what we are going to do. All right? So, form cells, concentric circles, 15, then 15, then 15, of fully committed men and women of integrity. Fully committed. Bound only by the values of valor, values of integrity, values of freedom, values of honesty, values of transformative vision. Once you have that, then we will call a day when we can march on to State House and we can take it. I can assure you, Ruto will take the first flight to Sudan so that he can go and die with the janjaweed that he supports. All right? But if he remains in the country, he's going to committee. And all these big houses that he's constructing for mistresses all over the country will be taken over and will turn them into hospitals and huge, research facilities. He's built very nice places that we can turn into huge medical research, ICT, artificial intelligence, hubs for the country, for the benefit of everyone. We can turn them into huge factories, the farms that he has dotted all over the country, together with the Uhuru's. Some of them will be malls, like the Taj Mahal that he has built in Washungishu. That would be a tourist attraction. We turn it over to the Ministry of Tourism and is run properly and earns the country revenue. So this is the way. There will be expropriation without compensation of public land they have stolen. We must expropriate all public wealth that these people have taken. All the banks they are starting, all the hotels they have opened, these are all public. These are all public property, which we must take back. And then run them efficiently, with integrity, to earn public wealth. And then we will turn the cities into modern, well-managed cities of the world, just like I told them in 2017. Nairobi needs a subway system. That's the only way to deal with transport. And Mombasa, and Kisumu, and Nakuru, and Eldoret, and all the cities. There is no city in the world that does not have the majority of its commuters underground. If you don't have that, you're not a city. You're a village. You're a banana republic. Okay? So we want to do this. Tanzania is doing it. They have trams. They have streetcars that are modern. The Dar es Salaam International Airport now is better than Kenya 10 times. And they have done it in the last 15 years. Magufuli did a great job before the Americans took him out. It doesn't matter if they take you out as long as you leave a mark. What you leave behind is a legacy, just like Sankara left a legacy. Revolutionaries don't die as long as you have left a legacy. We are talking of Lumumba. We don't talk of Mobutu, who was there for 35 years, 40 years. Lumumba was not even there for 2 years, but we still talk about Lumumba. We talk about Sankara, who was there for only 4 years. We talk about Nkrumah, who did not finish 5 years. The point is, legacy more important than all this ostentatious opulence, courtesy of our taxes. And once we have these cells Then we have the engine of change. If you turn this into a movement, the cells coming together into a movement, a national reconstruction movement, call it what you want, a national revolutionary movement, a national reconstruction movement, whatever you want to call it, then we can turn Kenya around. It would not matter what age group, it would not matter what gender, it would not matter the level of education. The values are what should and must unite us in turning things around. And that is what I wanted to say today about the meaning of Raila Odinga's defeat, the meaning of Raila Odinga's complete humiliation in Addis Ababa, that it is good for the revolutionaries. It is a terrible failure for the oligarchs, the bandits, the criminals, and should now re-energize us in the final push for the total liberation of Kenya. Let me look at some of the questions that you may have. Any questions? I don't see questions. Huh? Are there any questions?
No.
Yeah, I think everybody is happy. So, viva! This has been a magnificent day, and I would love to go on and on, but every good thing must have a beginning and also an end. And so, comrades, patriots, citizens, freedom fighters, we must continue. A luta continua. Viva!
Who's the best one to replace Ruto'S? They're asking.
Okay, so the question is asked, who is the best person to replace Ruto? The movement will decide. Once we have the movement based on values, the best person will emerge out of the movement. It is retrogressive and reactionary for someone to start from the position of, I must be a leader, or it must be this. No. There are thousands of Kenyans who are capable, but we have not created the conducive conditions for them to emerge to the leadership position. Just like in Senegal, you didn't know the current president would be president, and nobody knew what kind of president he would become. But I can assure you, there will, in the next epoch, after our revolution, no tin god, no pictures of people hanged in offices and business places. It's primitive. You hang your parents' pictures, your loved ones, and your heroes. You choose who those heroes are. The state should not choose that for you. So this low self-esteem character, behavior of hanging your pictures all over thinking that you are a semi-god, that will be a thing of the past. I can say that with confidence. Because that's not how proper societies are governed.
When are you coming back?
When am I coming back? As if I left. I was in Kenya last year, but because the conditions are such that revolutionaries can't really earn a living in Kenya. I'm a lawyer, but I can't really practice in Kenya. You know, in Kenya, if you want to win a case in court, probably if you're lucky and you get a good judge, or you bribe. And I cannot bribe anybody. So I practice law where my mind, the ability, the work, the dedication can put food on the table. So that's what I'm doing. I will be back this year, obviously. I'm not going to announce it now, but I will announce a date, and the struggle will continue. You know, I don't fear Ruto. I don't fear anybody. If I feared them, they would not have exiled me. because I was not leaving willingly. They forced me out. You don't force a coward out. You force a real revolutionary out because you're not able to face them. And so that's what happened. It does not matter where somebody is. Most revolutions in the world did not take place when the leaders were actually in the country when the revolution was taking place. In Cuba, Castro was in Mexico. All right? In Soviet Union or Russia, Lenin was in France. And in many countries around the world, including the latest one, Bangladesh, the leader was actually in France, in exile. In Iran, the Ayatollah was also in Iran. Most revolutionaries, the leaders of the revolutions, are not always around, but they're around in spirit. The message is out. And with the modern world, where we can use social media and we can use other modern techniques of communication like TikTok, like X, like Facebook or Meta, we can communicate real time regardless of where we are. And that is the spirit. It should not matter where we are. Wherever we are physically, as long as we can connect and reach one another, we can continue and must continue the struggle. We were able to defeat Raila Odinga even though I was not in Addis and I was not in Nairobi. But really we did. We did defeat Raila Odinga. It was not an accident. It did not happen, but it was not an happenstance. Okay? It was not some God that defeated Raila Odinga in Addis. We did through our work. So we are going to relish in this victory. Okay? Thank you.